the other side of it is, again, understanding who's actually profiting out of this. And then we have to go back to these very nice generals. And probably the best example for this is Barak, our ex-chief of staff, Minister of Defense, Prime Minister, who it's just a cute example. So when he was Minister of Defense in the previous government, he was in the process of privatizing IMI, Israeli military industry. It's the biggest Israeli military industry company in Israel. He was in the process of privatizing it. He thought he was about to retire. He paused, and he was privatizing it. And then political things changed, so he didn't retire. So he paused the privatization until he retired. Retired, it's being privatized now, and he is in the bid together with another business colleague to buy it. Okay, so I mean, it's pretty much out there. There's a whole lot of people, most of them ex-generals, who have the in the military. So they have the expertise, they have the connections, they have the effect that they have on the political system is extremely strong, and they can make a huge economic profit out of that. Today, 75 to 80% of Israel's military industry is for export. It's not about defense of Israel. It's about the bottom line. Israel today is in the top 10 biggest weapons exporters in the world. It's the #1 weapon exporter per capita in the world. It's now the #1 drone exporter in the world. And we're talking about a huge, huge industry, which also has, Israel is the, I think, 4th biggest military spender in percentage of GDP, 6.2% of our GDP, something like that. The US is 4.4. I don't remember the UK, but the world average is 1.8. The world average is 2.5. The NATO average is 1.8. So it's a lot of spending, but mostly it's just a lot of money coming in. And the reason that Israel can do that is that we can prove our weapons work, unlike a lot of other countries, because they're combat proven. I don't know how many of you in your spare time look at commercials for weapons. I assume not many. I do. But you'll actually see in posters, so you'll have like a poster for a drone, and I'm not kidding, you have posters for drones, and it has a stamp that says battle proven. That's how you market things. And so in the last attack on Gaza, there were over 20 different weapon systems, including missiles, new drones, protective systems, a lot of different things that had their first operational debut during the summer and are now being sold in September. So a month, not even a month after the operation ended, there was a huge military expo of drones near the airport, that's what they sell. And countries are very happy to buy that, and it's important to say that countries, especially the US, and I'm sure this is also true of the UK, but most of the examples I know are from the US, are also happy to use that angle of Israel. I just want to make the point, this is a very two-sided game. So, for instance, I don't know how many of you know the F-35 project?
No.
The Americans do. And the Canadians, great. So the F-35 project is supposed to be the last fighter jet, or the last manned fighter jet. It's a very high-tech fighter jet. It's supposed to be stealth. It's not, but that's a different issue. And it's a $1.5 trillion project. Okay? It's spent over 50 years, but it's a $1.5 trillion project. That's in now, I think it's 15th year or so. This plane had over 360 malfunctions. It's extremely expensive, and there's absolutely no operational use of it. The world is moving to drones. Nobody wants fighter jets anymore. It's a complete waste of money, but too big to fail. Way too many contracts already signed. You can't get out of it. So what does the US do? Nobody wants to buy this. Literally no country in the world was willing to buy this. So the US literally forced Israel to buy with US military aid. I don't know how much you know about the US military aid. It's $3.1 billion a year to Israel. It's the biggest aid recipient. 75% of that has to be bought back in the US. So actually it's a very nice subsidy from Congress to its own arms industry. Israel just happens to get the weapons in the way. Specifically, Israel didn't want to use that money on the F-35 because we really didn't want it. But the U.S. threatened them to stop to help with what's called the strategic advantage of the army. Mainly, the U.S. was saying, we can't guarantee that we'll give you high-tech weapons if you don't buy this plane. And now Israel has bought it, and since Israel has bought it, other countries are starting to buy it. Because if the military in Israel has it, we're going to see what it does. It has to be good. These guys know what they're doing. So this is a little bit about the profit side of how this whole system works. But if you want Israelis to never question that, to never think about that, one of the best things you can possibly do is, make them join you. Today, if you criticize the Israeli military, if you criticize the occupation, you're criticizing yourself, what you did as an 18-year-old kid, what your parents did, what your siblings do, what your best friend is doing. You can't do that. It's almost a psychological mechanism that prevents us from being able to actually criticize what's happening around us because we're doing it.